Good day, everybody. It's so good to see you. We are on the Zoom call and we're going to start in exactly 2 minutes. I'm going to connect us to Facebook Live. And today we're going to be going over a book review that I did on the power of habit. So this is what we're going to be doing, the power of habit. That's the picture of the book. And this is a sheet that I have written up for you guys. It's like actually 3 sheets, and I'm going to be reviewing my notes here with you and giving you, a synopsis of the top 10 points this book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And it's an extraordinary book, and I'm so happy that you're here and that if you don't have time to read it, I will give you the top 10 points. You'll get the gist and the main teachings in the book. And if you are so called and you really like what I'm sharing today, then you may choose to go read the book, yourself. But my point is to teach you guys enough of the book. I love to read, and I've made a commitment to read as much as I can this year. I had a very lofty goal of 54 books this year, and I'm plugging along. We'll see how many I actually read over or under that goal. But I pick a few of them for you that I think are very transformational, very insightful, and very valuable to help us live a better version of ourselves. So that's what we're going to be going over today. Get yourself something to drink and grab your notes, your notebook, and I am going to go live on our Facebook page. And feel free to write questions. I will try to look at both at different points. The best place to write is literally in the Zoom part and write the notes, because I have that on my screen here. You can also do it on Facebook if you're watching Facebook Live. So let's go live and see how if anybody will join us from there. So we're just getting set up. Okay, here we go. It's going ahead. So we have put this sheet for you in the Starpreneur page. If you want to go and print it out and go along and write notes on it, feel free to do that. It is valuable for you to go, if you're a visual person and you want to go along with the notes, we're going to be talking about each of these 10 topics. So here's what we're doing. As you know, I feel like some of the most extraordinary teachings are, available to all of us, right? So I had a complaint, actually a bad habit of going and complaining about living where I live based on my driving schedule. So I'm in the car during the school year about 4 hours a day. It's getting less, and next year looks like it'll be less because Spencer is officially driving and will have his official license in the next 3 months. So that's really exciting. or early in the school year. So I won't be driving as much. But my complaint is that I wanted to move in town, or I wanted to move closer. But the truth is where my driving circle changes every couple of years when the kids are going to different schools and all that stuff. And I really looked at, like, what do I need to change? And it's like, I need to reframe the story. I need to reframe my thinking and my bad habit of complaining and turning it into something that is more beneficial. So what I did was I said, well, how can I utilize that time in the car? And how I utilize that time in the car is by listening to books on tape. When I really, really like them, I get the book hardcover or, a book itself, and then I go through and I listen and I read at the same time. And I want to really learn this stuff. So this whole project of me doing the book reviews and then giving you guys a synopsis of different books, it's very valuable for me to teach it. Because when I know that I can teach it, I know that I know it myself. So it's very valuable for me, but it's also very valuable for those of you who don't have time. And maybe you want to listen to this recording. Again, we have it as available to members at Zoom, or, you want to listen and join in today, or just read the synopsis that I've written in this book. Okay, so I'll give you a quick summary. This book is called The Power of Habit. And it is written by the author Charles Duhigg, D-U-H-I-G-G. And his basic simple bio is that he's a Pulitzer Prize winner, he's a journalist, and a senior editor at the New York Times currently. This book became a New York bestselling, title. And he actually is very available. So if you have specific questions, you can literally email him at charles@charlesduhigg.com. He says he answers all of his emails. I haven't written him one yet, but feel free. And the quick summary of this book is why we do what we do in life and in business, and understanding how this works. So I'm going to read you what I wrote. This book teaches us how to break down our bad habits so we are able to mindfully replace negative habits with healthy ones. The fact is 45% of our actions we take in a day are powered by habit. We're going to talk about more about that in a minute. The 3 simple steps of habit is called a habit loop. So we create these habit loops. And again, we'll be talking more about all of this in a moment. The 3 simple steps of habits is called a habit loop. Here's what a habit loop is. First, there is a trigger. Second, and then there is an automatic response. And then finally, a reward for that response. Habits can be subtle. Some habits are good, some habits are bad, some habits are neutral. The idea is for us to gain control over ourselves by recognizing the habits that are not serving us. To change the habit, we need to change the cue and the reward. Unproductive habits like too much watching television, eating or drinking. What if we could powerfully support ourselves with the understanding of how to tap into a powerful force within ourselves that uses more than willpower? When we learn to step in front of the trigger and our normal response, thus creating a beneficial reward, therefore creating a new habit. Researchers call this the science of small wins. This book is life-changing when put into practice. So that is the 30-second or short review of the overall idea of the book. So there are 10 major main ideas and points. And the first idea is the habit loop. Okay, so this is number 1, the habit loop. There are 3 steps in the habit loop. It's the cue or the trigger. We call this the cue or the trigger. The second is automatic response. And the third is reward. Okay, so for example, cue, like what is a cue, right? Like, or a trigger. Sometimes they can be a place, a person, a smell. They can be like the actual thing. It's like an automatic, like something's happening. A time of day can be a cue or a trigger. Excuse me. And part of it is we need to understand and recognize what is actually cueing us or triggering us. So everything, excuse me, everything we do is a habit. some, we have habits, and when we create those habits to be successful, beneficial, healthy, we are actually using less of our brain power. So we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But so the cue, what is the cue? It can be some sort of external experience that we're having, okay? And then we get triggered, okay? The trigger is like a hot response. Like, for example, like the cue is if we were to see a hot stove and we're curious, like a little kid, and then we feel our response would be to touch it, and then it burns us. We learn with the burning that didn't work so good, and we're not going to do it next time. So next time we see a hot flame or a hot stove, we're gonna learn not to touch it. So our cue is hot stove, don't touch. Fire, don't touch, right? We learn these very early on. And then we can create that. So I want to read a little bit of something. So we need to recognize your loop cycles. Choose a daily habit that you want to get rid of. So what is it that maybe it's hitting your alarm clock. Like the cue is the alarm clock. The automatic response is snooze. And then we fall back asleep, or we wake up groggy. There's actually science behind this that is taught. It's called sleep inertia. So literally, a better habit would be to replace it. So when we create a mindful understanding of the cue, so here's what's happening negatively. I hit the snooze button, I fall back asleep, I wake up groggy, my day runs late, everything feels like I'm tripping over each other and myself, and whatever, the kids aren't getting up gracefully and on time, and it's like the whole day starts out in a negative cycle of downward like spillage, right? This is what happened to me years ago, and then I was like, I gotta change this. So when the alarm went off, I was like, get up right away, right? Get up right away. And then what happens is that everything seems to fall into place a little bit more. So we need to first recognize the loop cycles that aren't serving us. Like, what's going on in your life that isn't necessarily serving you? And then how can you create a new habit based around that, right? Because we create patterns, and then we want to create rewards that we want to receive. Okay, so that is the first part, right? So the first practice of that, so again, the number one idea is the cue, the automatic, and the reward. So cue, automatic response, reward. This is a habit loop, right? And our bodies and our brains want to send things into habit because we don't have to use our cognitive ability as much when we just do what we do, right? This is what professional sports people do. This is what, like, for example, my son is practicing right now with pool. He is literally, he calls it a shot routine. So every time he goes up to the ball, he does the exact same things in a row so that he is automatically creating a straight line with his body based on habit. So his mind doesn't have to think about it because there's nerves and other things that come up that happen. So this is what the habit loop is. It's on page 20 of the book if you have the book or you want to get the book. So number 2. So let's talk more about the cue. So number 2, a habit is first triggered by a cue. A cue is a trigger or measure that communicates to your brain consciously or unconsciously to engage in an activity. This cue is at the core of every single habit, good or bad. So when we understand that, we understand the cue is the key. In this whole book, the cue is the key. So here's some suggested practices that we can do. Ask yourself this powerful question: when I do X action, whatever that action is, what happens immediately? So this takes some thinking. It takes some, observation on our part to really see, like, what is going on. And then identifying behaviors ahead of time and seeing the patterns. Patterns help us or you unlock your potential. So it's all about the pattern. What is the pattern that we're creating for ourselves? So location, time, emotional, it can be a state of mind, it can be other people, it can be a smell, it can be any sense. So this is the idea too. I'm like a cue, CUE, right? Page 43, it speaks more about the cue. If you want to go directly to the book and read the whole section on yourself. Idea number 3, the golden rule of habit change. This is on page 62. And basically, to change a habit, you must keep the old cue and then deliver the old reward, but insert a new routine. Okay, let me read that again. To change a habit, you must keep the old cue. So that's why we do all the recognizing. That's why we want to observe ourselves. That's why we want to see what our habits are and what we're doing so that we can truly see how to do it. And once we identify the cue, we want to deliver the old reward. So that's like the bookends. Cue and reward are the bookends. But in the middle, we want to insert a new routine that we love, right? Not one that we don't. So how do we do this, or what do we practice to do this? We need to pick a habit you'd like to change. So what is it that you want to change? I'll use the getting up in the morning when the alarm goes off, right? That's an easy one to understand, and we can do this, right? So we have to identify the habit loop. So if you're the snooze button person and you're constantly getting up, or maybe it's procrastination, or maybe it's, lack of exercise, it's very powerful to be able to identify. So the golden rule: to change a habit, you must keep the old cue and then deliver the old reward, but insert a new routine. So what we can do for this is pick a habit that we want to change. So what do you want to change? What do you want to change? What are you not happy with? What do you think you could be better at? What would you like to identify and do more of? And what do you believe you can change? Because if we don't believe it, then it's not happening, right? Like, we have to first believe it. So we need to identify the habit loop. And once you have clearly identified this as what you've done and what routine, then you are able to implement and will give the same or better reward. So the same or better reward. So exercise is a great one. So what we want to do is really look at, so when I was like in really bad shape and hadn't worked out in probably 15 years, this was a few years ago. And I was like, I got to change this habit because I don't like what's happening, right? So what I used to do is literally when the alarm went off, I would make working out the first thing in the morning, and I would drop the kids off at school. I would I would have my clothes laid out, and I would just slip them on, and then I would go. So that is what it's like, identifying. And then what happened is I ended up going, and then I ended up going twice, then I would a day sometimes. Then I wanted to be in the actual program for becoming a yogi, and I did that. And then when I injured myself, I was in really great shape, and it was like I was in better shape than I would have been. So it's like, then it changes slowly. So we have to pick something, and the reward was I met all these great people and really opened my mind to all sorts of things. And the reward always was like endorphin rush, which I don't think I was really thinking about when I said I wanted to change that habit. So that the golden rule of habit change: to change a habit, you must keep an old cue and then deliver the old reward, but insert a new routine. So there's the bookends, and we're inserting a new routine. And this can change all the time, right? This can change all the time, and we can, start small and move from there. So that is the third main idea, the golden rule of habit change. Okay, so idea number 4, belief. So this is the fourth one, it's belief. It all starts with the belief in yourself. We need to believe in ourselves for sure. Nothing's going to happen. If you don't believe you can improve, then you won't. Like, There's that saying that says, argue your limitations and surely they will be yours. So if we don't believe, we're proving it right. We're proving ourselves right all the time. This is the leverage your family and friends or community, right? So let's leverage our community. So what we can do is we can share with our friends or a community, 2 or 3 people. We can also, if you're hearing that ringing going on in the background, it's my husband doing something. I don't know exactly what, but he's checking something, so I don't need to answer that. Anyway, so we need to believe in ourselves, and this is the leverage your family, friends, or community. Using social accountability will help us change and be more successful. It completely changes the game of growth. And this is what I would like to suggest to you. Use Starpreneur in the group here. If there's something that you're like, hey, I'm trying to lose 10 pounds for the summer, or I'm trying to do this, or I'm trying to do that. It's like, tell us what it is. Let us cheer you on. Let us support you through the process. Let us, champion you. Let us lift you when you're not feeling so good. And I encourage you to do a video and speak it into reality and do what I'm doing. Jump on, hit live, go. Whatever's going on, and just share tidbits, because when we have social accountability, we are more likely to do it. Especially as women, we are more likely to be accountable to others. We're so used to being accountable to others. So it is powerful. It's not for everyone. Some people are very good about making commitments to themselves and keeping them. If you are not in that very rarefied air, which I happen to be okay with, but I'm much better with social accountability. So share a social accountability. It can be as small a group as 2, and it can be, or go to your own community or Facebook page, and I suggest you do the same. And it's very powerful to do it live and not do a video that you're, basically, editing and looking at. It's like too much. Just do it. Like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just go and do it. And if it's something you really want to change and you want to make a commitment to. So that's the 4th, is belief. So just to recap, the first idea is the habit loop, right? That's the main idea. And that's the cue or the trigger, the automatic response, and then the reward. The second one is the cue. This is the second main idea. A habit that first is triggered by a cue. So we understand the cue. We have to identify our cues. We have to observe ourselves. We have to be willing to test it back and forth. The cue. The golden rule is 3. The golden rule of habit change, right? To change a habit, you must keep the old cue and then deliver the old reward or better, but insert a new routine in the middle. And 4 is belief. So we need to believe in this, or, it's futile. Okay, so 5. Now we're on to the 5. Keystone habits. These can be negative or positive, and I'm going to actually do 5 and 6 combined together in the teaching today, because one's negative and one's positive. And the truth is like, keystone habits are like, the keystone at the top of like an arch. There's that one main, most important, and it affects all the strength of all the other bricks in that keystone of bricks. That one, if it's out, the whole thing falls apart or breaks down or changes. This keystone habit is important to understand because it affects other things. So not all habits are created equal, right? Some habits are extraordinarily negative or positive. The habit to that affects many other things, right, will actually, like I'll use exercise as an example for a positive one. So when someone is a regular exerciser, they wake up or they create it as part of the routine. It is a habit that they do. Maybe they've done it their entire lives. It affects so many other things. It affects our mental health. They actually have done research to say that people that exercise regularly at the gym spend a lot less money for frivolous things. They have more control over their credit and or their wealth. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So that's, regular exercise is very powerful, right? That would be a keystone habit. So not all habits are created equal. These are called keystone habits. Observe what overarching themes and pattern that don't serve your life. For example, on the negative ones, like negative would be like going to a drink to calm down, right? And then now that's your trigger or your cue to like relax and self-care. But over time, that can be a problem, right? So there are other ways to self-care and relax other than having a glass, 2, 3, or a bottle at night, right? And it's also difficult too because our society spends so much time praising drinking because people actually have bad habits around it. I mean, and not that drinking is all bad, it's not, but it's a common trigger for a lot of people. So suggested practice for a negative keystone. What's the one thing, you can ask yourself, what's the one thing that I can do today that would make my life in many areas better? So what's the one thing that would affect other things? So this is oftentimes self-care, self-love, health, exercise, because it changes all. Meditation is in there. So many things. So these are suggestions that we could do is what's the one thing I can do today that would make my life in many areas better. Example, exercise, meditation, educating yourself. Listen, the fact that you're even watching this video, it's like most people, there's only like 2% of people that will continue to read and educate themselves on an ongoing basis. It's a very small group actually that continue to transform themselves and learn and educate and have growth mindset. As it said, goes the body, goes the mind, right? Our body is actually a direct reflection of our mind. So if our body is in pain or disrupted or somehow irritated, so is our mind in pain, disrupted, irritated, right? But when our bodies feel calm and peaceful and flexible and supple, so does our mind. Calm, peaceful, flexible, supple, right? So the positive side of that, right, is again, not all habits are created the same. And we might want to recognize like what are the things in our life that really, really help us habitually to affect us, right? So you could ask yourself that same question, and on the positive side, like let's maintain those things, or maybe how can I even make it better? So that's number 6 and number 7, the keystone habits. So that's 5 and 6. Keystone habits, negative is 5, keystone habits, positive is 6. So there's many things we can do. It's like a lot of this is just really in the awareness of understanding what it is that we're doing, right? What is it that we're doing? And really get mindful with the fact, like, how's that going? What am I doing? What are my actions? So number 7 is small wins. So I love this one because I look back on it and I was like, oh, it's literally called the science of small wins. This has been studied by researchers. Every action counts. Every action of body, every action of speech, every action of mind. I've shared this with you guys before in meditation, actually, in guided meditation. But there's no action that's too small to not count. So this is the good news, because if we're really triggered, if we're really having a hard time, we need to experiment and try small little adjustments back and forth and see how's that landing? How's that helping me? So small actions count. Small wins matter towards any desired goal. And sometimes we get into this bad habit where we think the outcome is the only thing that matters. The result, the high, the dollars in my bank account, or the revenue of my business, or and it's like there's 1,000 steps or more for that to happen, maybe millions, right? So we need to start small. Everybody runs a marathon one step at a time. So any big goal needs to be broken down to its micro miracle mini parts. There are many, many parts, and we need to break it down and celebrate those distinctive steps. Each step can be celebrated, because you know, and I think of a marathon, it's like nobody's running a marathon or going on like I went on a 9.4 mile walk the other day with my best friend Kelly. And it's like, that was one step at a time. And if I hadn't taken the first step, then I wasn't going to take the last one. Now, let me tell you, the last, like, I don't know, 1,000 steps were pretty, I hope it did it well. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, without the first one, we're not going to make it to the last one. And we sometimes dismiss and use the not getting here, the perfectionism, as a whipping post for ourselves. And it's just not useful. It's a bad habit, actually. So it's like, let it go. Okay, you know, I wanted to do 10 miles today and I only did 2, or I didn't do any. It's like, okay, let me get up, start over, and practice, practice, practice. Small wins matter. This is on page 112 in the book, if you're interested. First step matters. Maybe get dressed and go to the gym, lift one weight, do a push-up, one plank, whatever. So when it comes to exercise, it's like, you know, when I first started yoga, again, my best friend Kelly would say, meet me at yoga, meet me at yoga. I was like, and I've been here. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to get dressed and I'm going to go. And if I have to sit on the mat the whole time, then I'm going to sit on the mat. And I literally was the worst person in yoga for like years. I mean, these people are twisting and doubling. I don't know. I was like so amazed by them. And I was like, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to pat myself on the back for coming. I was really out of breath and I was really out of shape, really bad. And it's like, and then I got to be like, oh, holy hell, I'm like teaching the classes. I like know what I'm doing. I'm going to yogi 200-hour teacher training and doing yoga twice a day and Soul Cycle. Like it was crazy, right? And then I injured myself and I'm getting back again. So I got to get in the beginner mindset. So this is where small wins matter, beginner mindset. And sometimes we have to go back to the beginner mindset. It's very powerful. Beginner mindset is very, very powerful. Because when we get into the habit of, I know, I've been there, I've done that, I got the t-shirt kind of thing, what are we really doing? We're closing our mind to new ideas. We don't want to do that. It's a bad habit. Okay, so small wins. Willpower is number 8. So the 8th idea is willpower. So this was fascinating for me. On page 131, specifically, willpower. So understand willpower is not an endless resource. This was such a fascinating thing for me. Willpower is not an endless resource. And it takes a lot of brain power to make willpower work. So if you are leaning into your will to accomplish your projects and things in your business, it is unstable. It's an unstable thing to lean into. Powerful. This is very, because I would say this was one of the things that I did a lot, is use my will to just will things. It's exhausting. It's draining. It's unstable. When you're tired, like we should know, never make decisions in an emotional way. Never make decisions when you're really tired and you haven't really rested on it or meditated on it or really thought about it. If they're really big, life-changing, like far-reaching decisions, don't make them when you're tired, right? And don't lean into willpower to help us, guide us, because it's unstable, especially when we're tired. That's why when in the morning, or when we first wake up and we've rested all night and our body's recharged, hopefully, and done what it's supposed to do to help guide us, it's like, right? Willpower. And of course, the suggested idea is to try and make things habit that are important. So how do we do that? We have to do all the steps before, or some of them, where we have to actually mindfully recognize, what do I want to do to make it habitual so that literally it becomes a reaction and I get the reward, right? This is why, many very successful entrepreneurs get up in the very early morning and they'll meditate and work out and create those habits so that their mind is like ready to take on the day. And a lot of yogis, a lot of monks and nuns who do this kind of thing, it's very valuable to do. It's like, get up early, create habits that work, even around eating and self-care and all of that stuff. So willpower is not an endless resource, and we need to use it wisely. Okay, so number 9, the idea number 9, habits in the workplace, right? So this is, because we're a business community as well as a spiritual community, it's really important to talk like, what is your mantra or mission statement? Like, what is the one thing that you go back to in work all the time? And it's not just you, it's anybody that is either working with you or for you as an employee. Like, what is the mantra or mission, so that that's the filter that things are running? The frame, what is the frame you deem everything in your organization to refocus on your work, right? Like, what is that? Is it excellence? Is it creativity? Is it connection, right? What is it that it's like spirituality? Like, what is, like, I always think of the one word. What's the one word, right? So here it is. The frame. This is a frame you deem everything in your organization to refocus it on your work. Leadership happens in a choice and betterment of others, right? So one way we get a team of people going in the same direction is make your mantra and your mission and loop back to this, is what you say, think, and do. So it's not only that you know it, it's that everyone else knows it, right? Everyone else knows the way that it works, right? Like, Zappos is all about delivering happiness, and Haish wrote a book about delivering happiness. That's what it's called. And it's a great idea when you think about it, because now, and I've read case studies where people go into Zappos and it's like people there are having fun and they're delivering happiness. And in the customer service, which is usually like a bay of phones and people are miserable that work there, not at Zappos, because the mantra is, it's like, deliver happiness. Let's really find a way to serve our customers. So the idea is, and this is probably a great thing to revisit too, as you're growing and developing in your business. Like, what is it that you are delivering in business? What is your mantra or mission statement for your work? So this is some practices you could do. Give a theme, thing, or idea that everyone points to in your workplace or in the workplace. Think of it as a mantra and make it a habit to reinforce it. What is the cue? What is the routine? And what is the reward for doing it, right? Ideas are safety, love, leadership, kindness, health, activism. These are some ideas. So that is habit, the power of habit idea, main idea number 9. And the last one, number 10, is conscious choice. So how do we have more power over our own lives? We can make better choices to run our life. We have an obligation to sit down, take responsibility, look at our habits, diagnose cues and rewards, and conduct experiments on our behavior. Take 1 steps towards a change for the better. So we need to understand that it takes conscious willpower to actually start evaluating and looking at these habits that we have. And then once we've practiced it enough, it becomes a habit. We won't need to use our willpower anymore, but we need to consciously do it. We need to own our energy. When you actually look at all the problems in our life, they are all rooted in the fact that we aren't taking ownership, full ownership, right? So we need to contemplate this. We need to think about it, right? And some suggestions might be, pick a small action of body, speech, or mind, right? So it's like, what can I do with my body? What can I say, speak, think, write, blog, video? Or what can I think with my root mind, right? Which is at our hearts. And then make a choice and see what happens. Experiment. Be willing to be wrong. Be willing to be the beginner. Be willing to observe like you are, testing it in science. And it's like, well, let's see what happens here. So these are the main points of the book. The Power of Habit. I'm going to show you this, The Power of Habit. And I have a 3-page recap on this written out with all 10 of the habits. And I think that this book was so great. It's a little bit, the read itself is a little bit masculine, to be fair. It's the examples in it are like sports and male CEOs, and it's very masculine, but it's great. It's a little bit on the, I don't know, what do you call that, left brain side or whatever. But it's powerful. It's like understanding these basic things. And you know, how much time do we actually take breaking things down and looking at ourselves, because this is what where all the transformation happens. And sometimes looking at a book like this by Charles Duhigg and really understanding habit and the science behind it. He references quite a bit of science here, not as much as others. Other you know, researchers will seem to like delivering happiness before happiness. You know, some of the books that I've done in the past with Dr. Sean Anker, who's a researcher out of Harvard, and Dr. Brene Brown. There's a lot of researchers, and they'll like footnote many other like I like to read all that, the white papers and the research and stuff like that as well. So if you're into that, that's you know, there is that element in this book too. So that's my recap. And I'm going to just check Facebook really quick to see if there's any questions. Here's what I'd like to say to you guys is, what habit do you want to change? You know, what is it that you want to, what is it that you don't like that has been a habitual thing, right? So for me, I would say it has been I am very disciplined with my work. I am very habitual. I get up every day, Monday through Friday, and I do work. I like to start my day out. I do a half hour before 7:30, majority of the days, where I do a check-in meditation and kind of assess my day. So for me, it's the exercise. I still need to, I'm healing my shoulder and it's almost there, but I really need to amp it up a little more, and I need to change, because that's a keystone habit, exercise and health. So I've come a long way in my health in the last like 6 or 7 years, where I was really in a bad shape before. So energy wise, so it's keystone. So I'm going to be working on that. I'd like to hear from you guys about, you know, what ahas you might have had from this review, what, you know, what habits maybe you're working on yourself, and anything else that you want to share about what was triggered or created for you. So thank you so much. I love you guys very much. And some updates, you know, we'll be posting on the page, so have a look. We have some things coming up that might be really great. But I love you all, and this will be available. Many of you like to listen to the recording, and you know, and then it's there for you. So you can print this. What I suggest is print it up, listen to the recording, and listen to it as many times as you need to, or while you're driving or whatever, to help you. So I love you. I hope you all have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. I love you.